We started out a couple weeks ago, 2 Sundays ago, looking at this concept of God's love, for the love of God. And one of the things that came out of that conversation, if you will, is that it's not just about some commandment that says we ought to take the time to say, I love you, God. Because God, Spirit Creator, the Absolute, is love. And doesn't want for love or need more of it. It isn't. However, we may be of the mindset that we forget that love made us. We may be of the mindset at this point in our lives, after accumulating all of these limiting concepts, that we're not worthy of love, or that we just need a little bit. So really, this concept of for the love of God, the relationship with God, has most to do with our letting that love in, which is already present, which is infinite, abiding, awaiting our invitation. And we said last week that that was the beginning of really being able to step into a genuine self-love. Recognizing that we are loved made it easier to love ourselves. So this week we arrive at sort of step 3, or part 3 in this series of loving one another. And we love one another, in this case, from the wholeness that we got a better idea, a better sense of, because we took the time to look at allowing ourselves to be loved by love, and allowing ourselves to love ourselves, knowing that love made us. From that place, it's much easier. In fact, it probably just is easy to love others well. Not better, not in some quantifiable, special way that's right, but to love each other well. So this week, we're talking about loving one another from wholeness. So that first part of wholeness comes from what I just shared with you. This idea that we turn first to God, Spirit Creator, the I Am principle, whatever is a comfortable name and relationship for each one of us individually. And then to really looking at our relationship with ourselves. And it must be, to be real, more than an intellectual foray. Because love is in the heart. Love includes the intellect. There's use for that. And yet love is down here, an embodiment. So when we look at loving one another from wholeness, there's another thing that I wanted to bring in that I think is a wonderful part of that formula, if you will. Some of us took a class together a while back. When was that? Oh my goodness, probably last fall on Thomas Troward. I see a couple of smiles in the back of the room. We took this class together called The Creative Process in the Individual. And in that work, Thomas Troward, who was a British judge in Punjab, India, back in the late 1800s, when he retired, he dedicated his life to writing and lecturing on metaphysics full-time instead of part-time when he was a judge. And one of the things that he explains in this work, called The Creative Process in the Individual, is sort of like, why are we here? He attempts to answer that question, and what does it all mean? He says that the first order of Spirit's highest law, Spirit's primary principle, is harmony. Harmony. If you think about Spirit, before any form has been created, before anything has been made, just this formless, vast, infinite idea and presence. And its primary principle, its highest order, that would mean something that is always part of it and never not part of it, ever, 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 is harmony. It's always in agreement with itself and never in opposition to itself. The very idea doesn't exist there. Only that of harmony. I think it would be pretty easy to translate that to love, which is why I made that connection. So then, if harmony creates some sort of manifestation, some demonstration, some outpicturing in form, it would make sense that what he says next is that the first order, the highest order, the primary principle of creation is unity. If you think about it, harmony outpictured in form, as all of us, for example, would that not be unity? It would be the embodiment and the experience, the expression of oneness. There's so much more to it than that, but those two principles is really what I wanted to focus on. So, we're saying that Spirit's first law is harmony, and that the first law of creation is unity. And we're here. We've heard a rumor that Spirit made us out of itself. That there's one presence, one substance, one activity, one thing going on. Not two, but one. That makes sense. And if there's one substance, and if there's one life, and if everything is an extension, an embodiment, an expression of it, and it's all unity, unified, all one, then it would make sense that the qualities of our lives, at the very core, back of everything that we think is going on, are those two things. That quite possibly at the very center, at the core of each one of us, is harmony. And if we were to just meditate on that one concept and watch it sort of wash over, move through every part of our being, it would fit quite naturally because it's who we really are. And if we contemplate this idea of unity, of oneness, it fits quite naturally because it's who we are. We're wired for it. We're designed to recognize it. We're designed to embody it and to express it and to experience it. So we could look at wherever we are in our lives right now and go back and say, wait a minute. Somewhere behind all of this, unity is apparent. And if I look for it, I'll see it. If I feel for it, I'll feel it. And somewhere behind all of this that appears to be going on is harmony. If I look for it, I'll find it. If I open myself to feel it, I'll feel it. So that's part of it. The other part that I love, that is what comes next in this course of study with Thomas Troward, or this line of thinking that he's sharing, is that Spirit is forever seeking greater ways to experience the joy of living. Joy. Can you not imagine that if we begin with harmony and we move out in unity, which means that every expression is equal to every other, all are in agreement, all work together, everyone gets some, there's no concepts of lack or separation or limitation of any kind. Just oneness, togetherness, agreement, harmony, symphony, accord, perfect orchestration. If we start with those, it's no wonder that the experience of it would be joy, and so much more, such as beauty. So how about if we know that at the core, our very essence, before we were even formed, we're harmony. And the very fact that we're here means that unity is our first law. And what if joy is the reason for it all? Well, that's a wonderful assignment, isn't it? So there are a couple other things, which I'll get to in a moment, that have to do with relating to each other. If we are going to love from wholeness, then knowing what we know now, loving from wholeness, I can just feel it. Oh, well, I'm going to always remember harmony. I'm always going to have unity with me. And I'm going to remember that joy is at the heart of it all. And then when I deal with a friend or a family member or co-worker, customer service, oh, there's a real human being on the other end of that line. Somebody at the cash register downstairs. We encounter one another all of the time, doing what we are finding in the moment is necessary as we grow, as we discover that our choices are broader than we thought they were. So everywhere we look, everywhere we go, there's harmony, embodied as unity, doing his or her best to experience the joy of living. And if it appears that they're not experiencing the joy of living, what would we do? One of the things that came up a lot this week was that I spent some time with people who had someone in their lives they really cared deeply about. Perhaps a blood relative or someone just really, really, really close to. And feeling deeply pain because that person was unhappy. A person was struggling somehow. And the conundrum in the moment for that person who loved someone else and wanted him or her to be happy and well was how to go about loving them back to happiness and wellness. So here's where another quality of spirit comes in. Spirit is present and available in its fullness and in its wholeness, at the ready, always providing everything that we desire and require in every moment. The answer to every question, the fulfillment of every need, perfect substance all around, perfect examples of order everywhere we turn, eternal energy, right? However, it can't force any of that good on us. The beautiful design of all of this is that when we are ready, when we are open, when we ask, when we seek, when we knock, it is added. But if we were force-fed our good, that wouldn't work. There's so many reasons why it wouldn't work. One, because it's infinite. And we can only handle what we can handle where we're at in this part of our experience that is perfect for who we are. In this continuum between formless and infinite number of forms. Another reason why it wouldn't work to have all of our good forced on us is because if that were so, we wouldn't be free. If spirit, being maybe, let's say, a well-meaning, sort of micromanaging friend or parent, said, I know what you need, so I'm just going to go ahead and give it to you, and you'll thank me later. It wouldn't work that way. If you think about this, for example, in terms of a relationship with a parent or a caregiver or an authority of some sort, if that person, well-meaning enough, says, I know what you need, so I'm going to go ahead and give it to you, and if you know what's good for you, you'll just accept my gift, my free advice, my suggestion, or whatever, something or other. It won't work. The beauty of it is that it will work when the person is receptive, when they're ready, when they're open. So there's this extraordinary thing built into all of this called freedom. That everything that we require is always included in the package, just like a seed is packed with everything that it needs to go from an idea to the fullness of life, the classic acorn and mighty oak, or the mustard seed. Everything is already provided. But it's when we decide to open up, when we decide to grow, when we do that our needs arise for where we're at in our journey and call upon those resources as needed when we're ready, and they're there. So when we think about somebody we love and we wish that person was in this room this morning, we wish that person would take that class that we are taking right now and read that book we've been reading lately and just get with the program and start doing these great things that we're doing, we can't do that. We can't say, you should take this class, you should come with me, you should read this book. What actually happens when we push, when we forget how Spirit works and try in another way of our very own, is that we prolong the time that that person stays away from that good. Because we're trying to make it happen. However, if we look back, and now we may be thinking about somebody we love very, very much who's really struggling right now. But think about the times when you've gone to a restaurant and you've never been there before, you don't know what's good. You might ask the person who's serving you, what's good today? What do you like? And they'll just start beaming and spouting about their favorite things, and there's a sense of attraction about that because of the enthusiasm and the authenticity of it. Something that we can do, which Spirit, which nature does do, is to demonstrate and to model. Something that we can do is to inspire and attract. And you know, you can even do that on purpose. You still have to let go of the outcome, which is the next part of this little presentation. But what you can do to your heart's content is to demonstrate it by loving yourself. And to model it by being an example of someone who has a wonderful, nourishing relationship with the Creator, the Absolute, a practice that works for you. You're someone whose life is working for you. You can be an inspiration when you authentically share what's inspiring you and working for you without attachment to someone saying, I'd like some of that, or can I come with you? It does happen, by the way. But it happens when that person is ready, and you get to be the vehicle, the instrument, who's present in that person's experience, a living example of what is possible in that moment when they're ready. That's natural. So whether it's a son or a daughter, a sister or brother or a friend, an uncle, father, mother, grandchild, whomever it is, you can be present and extremely influential in that moment when they're ready by being there yourself. So the other part is letting go. Because sometimes loving others is all about letting go. And Spirit models that as well in nature all the time. There is a constant cycle of ebb and flow. There are orbits, there are seasons, there are tides. There are periods of from consummation through gestation and birth and all of the stages of life into the readiness to return to the formless and to pass from this world and back into the formless and around again. They're happening all the time. And sometimes what is required is the willingness to let go. And letting go is also a powerful spiritual practice. Because if you have someone you love, perhaps, who is struggling, and you've done your very best to be a beautiful example of loving Spirit, loving yourself, loving them, and you're present and available, and they know it in some way, excuse me, the next thing to do is let go. When we do our 5-step affirmative prayer, the last step is to let go. I always like to say that if you go to a restaurant that you do know and you order your favorite thing off the menu, you trust that it's coming. You don't run into the kitchen and check and see if they know what they're doing. That's what they do. You sit there and visit with your friend and trust that it's coming. So I invite you to just take these ideas with you today. Number one, at your very essence, with or without a body, a life, friends, props, anything at all. Harmony is who and what you are. The very fact that you're here in this physically manifest universe at this time means that the first law, the highest order of all of it, including your life, is unity. And it's true of everybody and everyone and everything around you. The third one is that joy is the whole point. The embodiment, the expression, and the experience of joy. The fourth one is that you're free to say yes or no thank you. So why not say yes? And the fifth one is that letting go and allowing all of this perfection and this good to happen because it already is, why not, seems to be what gets us out of the way so that it can happen. There's no greater explanation of what trust is than letting go. So we're just going to take this into prayer and close by sealing this with some inner words. I know that spirit is harmony, that it has created everything out of itself as unity. And I know that this harmony and this unity produce lives and experiences which are extensions and expressions of it. That they lay the groundwork, create the wiring, the blueprint, supply everything necessary for joy. And I recognize that we are free to say yes to this joy. I recognize that all around us are demonstrations, models, inspirations, and attractions to saying yes to joy, to recognizing our oneness, to recognizing and embodying and living our harmony. Because this is so, I know that all I need to do is let go and allow Spirit, Creator, the Absolute, to be what it is and do what it does with me. So in that gratitude, I simply release my word. I accept the gift as already given. And together as we open our eyes, we say, and so it is. Thank you.